The escape. Lyra's hands trembled as she pressed them against the escape pod's control panel. Blood trickled from her nose, the aftermath of forcing her way through the Dominion ship's psychic barriers. 10 years of being their weapon, of reaching into prisoners' minds and extracting their deepest secrets, had taught her exactly how their defenses worked. And exactly how to shatter them. The pod lurched as it entered Earth's atmosphere. Warnings flashed across the screens, entry angle too steep, stabilizers failing, crash trajectory imminent. Lyra couldn't focus enough to read them. The mental exertion of her escape had left her drained, consciousness flickering like a dying star. Just, stay awake, she whispered, her Alterian accent thick with exhaustion. Stay awake until... The pod slammed into something solid, trees, maybe mountains, and everything went dark. When she opened her eyes again, cold rain was pelting her face. The pod had torn open like a broken egg, scattering debris across what appeared to be a forested mountainside. Somewhere above, through the storm clouds, she could hear the distant hum of Dominion ships beginning their search pattern. Lyra forced herself to move. Every muscle screamed in protest as she dragged herself from the wreckage. Her white prison uniform was already soaked through, the fabric becoming translucent and revealing the neural suppression circuitry woven throughout. She'd disabled most of it during her escape, but some of the circuits still pulsed with a sickly blue glow. The rain helped wash away her blood trail as she stumbled through the forest. In the distance, she could see lights, not the harsh spotlights of search vessels, but the warm glow of what appeared to be windows. A structure of some kind, built into the mountainside. Her telepathic senses were too damaged to reach out and scan for threats. She was running blind, operating on pure survival instinct. The same instinct that had kept her alive through a decade of being the Dominion's tool. The building resolved itself into view, an ancient monastery, its stone walls covered in climbing vines and worn by centuries of mountain weather. A single light burned in a ground-floor window. Lyra's legs finally gave out as she reached the heavy wooden door. She collapsed against it, her fist weakly striking the aged oak. The sound seemed impossibly loud in the storm's quiet moments. The door opened, and she found herself staring up at a tall man with silver-streaked dark hair and eyes that had seen their share of warfare. He wore simple clothes, dark pants and a gray shirt rolled up to the elbows, revealing forearms marked with old scars. "Please," Lyra managed to whisper before her voice gave out. She couldn't remember the last time she'd spoken aloud instead of projecting thoughts directly into someone's mind. The man crouched down, his movements careful and deliberate. He studied her for a long moment, taking in her prison uniform, the neural circuitry, the fresh bruises and dried blood. His expression remained neutral, but his eyes softened slightly. "I'm Kai," he said, his voice low and steady. "This is a sanctuary. No one will harm you here." He reached out slowly, telegraphing his movement, and helped her to her feet. Lyra's legs wouldn't support her weight, so he carefully lifted her, mindful of her injuries. She tensed at first, physical contact had meant nothing but pain for so long, but his hold was gentle, clinical almost. Inside, the monastery was warm and smelled of herbs and old books. Kai carried her to a small room with a fire burning in a stone hearth. He set her down on a cot near the flames, then stepped back to give her space. "You're safe now," he said, retrieving a medical kit from a nearby shelf. "I won't ask questions you're not ready to answer." Lyra watched him through half-closed eyes as he prepared bandages and what appeared to be herbal medicines. Her telepathic abilities were slowly returning, giving her brief glimpses of his surface thoughts. No fear. No judgment. Just calm focus and understanding. "You were a healer," she said suddenly, the words rough in her throat. "Before." Kai paused, then nodded. "Military Medical Corps. 15 years in combat zones." He began cleaning a cut on her arm with practiced efficiency. "Now I tend to these gardens and help those who find their way here." "They'll come looking," Lyra warned. "The Dominion. They won't stop until." Rest, Kai interrupted gently. Tomorrow is soon enough for warnings. As he worked, Lyra noticed more details about the room. Shelves lined with ancient medical texts. Strange crystalline devices that hummed with familiar energy. This was no ordinary monastery. "What is this place?" she asked, fighting to stay conscious. Kai finished bandaging her arm before answering. "A refuge. For those who need to heal. And sometimes, for those who need to disappear." Lyra wanted to ask more questions, but exhaustion was finally overwhelming her. As she drifted into sleep, she felt Kai drape a warm blanket over her. For the first time in 10 years, she didn't dream of pain. Outside, the storm raged on, hiding the sound of distant ships searching the mountains. Inside the monastery's ancient walls, Lyra slept, her mind finally quiet. And Kai settled into a chair nearby, keeping watch through the long night, as he had done for others before her who had found their way to his door. In the monastery's deeper chambers, crystals pulsed with soft light, their energy masking the building from advanced scanners. The old place had its own secrets to keep, its own refugees to protect. And now it had one more: trust and healing. Dawn painted the monastery's stone walls in shades of amber when Lyra woke. Her body ached less, though her mind still felt raw, like skin scraped against rough stone. The neural circuits in her prison uniform had finally died, leaving dark lines traced across the fabric like dead vines. The room was empty, but she could sense Kai's presence nearby, a steady, calm wavelength among the monastery's ancient energies. Her telepathic abilities were returning, though she kept them tightly controlled. She'd had enough of forcing her way into others' minds. She found him in what appeared to be an indoor garden. Sunlight streamed through crystal panels in the ceiling, illuminating rows of plants she'd never seen before. Some glowed faintly, others moved slightly despite the still air. Kai knelt beside a bed of silver-leafed herbs, his hands gentle as he harvested their stems. "Those are meridian sage," she said, recognizing the plant from her healer's training on Alteris Prime. "They only grow in zero gravity." "How?" Kai looked up, unsurprised by her presence. "The monastery has its own gravity wells. Like many things here, they're remnants of older knowledge." He stood, brushing soil from his hands. "How are your injuries?" "Healing." Lyra approached one of the plant beds, careful to maintain distance between them. "You used stellaris root on the wounds. Combined with earth herbs. You know your medicines," Kai observed, returning to his work. "I was a healer. Before." The words caught in her throat. "Before they made me something else." Kai's hands stilled, but he didn't look up. "The Dominion takes healers often. Turns their gifts inside out. You've met others like me?" "Some. They found sanctuary here, for a time." He finally met her gaze. "Some stayed. Others moved on when they were ready." Lyra touched one of the glowing plants, watching it pulse in response. "And which were you?" A slight smile touched his lips. "Both. I came here first as a refugee. Stayed as a guardian." He gestured to the scars on his arms. "The military changed me too. Made me into something I didn't want to be. This place, it helps you remember who you were. Who you could be again." "I'm not sure that person exists anymore," Lyra whispered. "The things they made me do, the minds I broke." "Show me," Kai said quietly. She stared at him. "What?" "Show me. You're telepathic. Show me what they did to you. What they made you do." "I could hurt you," Lyra warned. "My abilities, they're not gentle anymore." Kai stepped closer, slowly, like approaching a wounded animal. "I trust you." "You shouldn't." "Show me anyway." Lyra hesitated, then carefully reached out with her mind. Instead of forcing her way in, she let her thoughts brush against his consciousness like leaves on water. To her surprise, his mental defenses were well trained but open, inviting her in. She showed him everything. The day the Dominion took her from the healing center on Altaris Prime. The neural reconditioning that turned her healing touch into a weapon. The countless minds she was forced to break, extracting information through their pain. Her own screams, trapped inside her head as they used the neural circuits to control her. Through it all, Kai's mind remained steady, accepting her memories without judgment. When she finally withdrew, she found tears on her cheeks. "How can you stand to be near me?" she asked. "After seeing what I am." "What they made you do," he corrected gently. "Not what you are." He turned back to the plants, giving her space to compose herself. "There's a difference between the weapon they created and the healer you were born to be. Both exist within you now. The choice of which to be, that's yours again." Lyra watched him work for a while, his movements precise and practiced. "Will you teach me?" she finally asked. "About the plants? The old medicines? If you'd like." He handed her a trowel. "We can start with the earth herbs. They're more forgiving." They worked together through the morning, Kai showing her how to tend the garden's more common plants. He explained their properties, their uses in healing, the proper ways to harvest and prepare them. It was simple work, peaceful. When her hands shook too badly to hold the tools, he didn't mention it. Around midday, they heard the distant sound of ships passing overhead. Lyra tensed, but Kai remained calm. "The monastery's shields hide us," he assured her. "They can't detect us here." "How long will they search?" "As long as it takes." He studied her face. "You can stay until they give up. Or longer, if you choose." Lyra looked around the garden, at the strange and wonderful plants that defied the laws of her understanding. At this man who had seen the darkness inside her and still offered trust. "I'd like to learn," she said quietly. "Everything you're willing to teach." Kai nodded, a genuine smile warming his features. "Then we'll begin with the basics. First lesson, healing starts with yourself." As the day progressed, Lyra felt something shift inside her. The weapon they'd made her into was still there, but with each plant she tended, each new skill she learned, the healer she'd once been grew stronger. It wasn't redemption, not yet, but it was a beginning. That evening, as shadows lengthened across the garden and the glowing plants began their nighttime phosphorescence, Kai showed her how to make tea from the meridian sage. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars appear through the crystal ceiling while ships searched uselessly in the distance. "Tomorrow," Kai said, "I'll show you the ancient texts. There's so much knowledge here, waiting to be rediscovered." Lyra cradled her tea, feeling its warmth seep into her hands. "Thank you," she said softly. "For not asking all the questions I can see in your mind." "Questions can wait," he replied. "Healing comes first." Above them, the stars wheeled slowly past, and somewhere in the garden, a luminous flower bloomed in the darkness, its petals opening to reveal a heart of pure light. Hunter's Shadow. The warning came 3 weeks after Lyra's arrival. She was in the monastery's archive chamber with Kai, studying an ancient text on psychic healing techniques, when the crystals embedded in the walls shifted from their usual soft blue to a pulsing red. "Proximity alert," Kai said, "already moving. They're getting closer." Lyra followed him to the observatory dome, her bare feet silent on the stone floors. The dome's crystal panels shifted and focused like a living telescope, showing them the valley below. 3 Dominion hunter ships circled the area, their black hulls absorbing light rather than reflecting it. "Those aren't regular search vessels," Lyra whispered, her throat tight. "They're shadow crafts. Hunters." Kai's expression hardened. "They can sense telepathic signatures." "Yes. And the pilots." Lyra closed her eyes, extending her senses carefully. "They're like me. Converted healers. They can track the mental echo of my escape. The monastery's shields have hidden others before. Not from these." Lyra pressed her hand against the crystal panel. They're using our old healing bond sense as a weapon. Following the trail of pain I left when I crashed. Below, one of the ships landed in a clearing. Dark figures emerged, their armor seeming to drink in the daylight. Even from this distance, Lyra could feel their twisted presence, minds that had once nurtured life, now honed to hunt and destroy. There's something else you need to know, Kai said quietly. He led her deeper into the monastery, past the gardens to a sealed door she'd never noticed before. Ancient symbols covered its surface, glowing faintly at their approach. The door opened to reveal a vast chamber. Crystalline columns rose from floor to ceiling, each containing what appeared to be floating text in languages Lyra had never seen. At the center stood a pedestal holding a single, pulsing crystal sphere. "What is this?" she breathed. "The real reason the monastery exists. The last complete repository of healing knowledge from 1,000 worlds. The Medicina Universalis." Kai touched one of the columns, an alien script cascaded through the air. When the great libraries were burned, when the Dominion began converting healers into weapons, a group of guardians gathered what knowledge they could and hid it here. Lyra stared at the wealth of information surrounding them. This could undo everything the Dominion has done. Restore what they've corrupted. Yes. Kai's voice was grim. Which is why they can never find it. A tremor ran through the building. Above, the hunter ships had begun a systematic scan of the mountain. Lyra could feel their probing thoughts, twisted versions of healing insight turned to violent purpose. "They'll find us," she said. "The shields won't hold against their combined power. Then we fight." Kai moved to a wall panel and pressed his palm against it. Hidden compartments opened, revealing weapons that seemed to be made of the same crystal as the archive. The Guardians weren't just healers. "We learn to defend what we protect." "We?" Lyra asked, even as she took one of the crystal weapons. It hummed in response to her touch, resonating with her telepathic energy. "I told you I stayed as a guardian." He checked his own weapon. "There are others, scattered across Earth. If I send the signal, they'll come. But it will take time we may not have." Another tremor, stronger this time. Lyra felt the hunters' minds drawing closer, their twisted healing sense detecting traces of her presence. "I should leave," she said. "Draw them away from here. The archive is too important to risk for one person." Kai caught her arm. "You're not running anymore. I won't let them destroy this place. Not because of me. They're not here because of you," he said firmly. "They're here because of what you represent. Hope. The possibility that their control can be broken. That what they've corrupted can be restored." A sudden, sharp pain lanced through Lyra's mind. One of the hunters had brushed against her mental defenses. She gasped, stumbling, but Kai steadied her. "They're inside the shield perimeter," she managed. "Minutes away." Kai nodded, his face set with determination. "Then it's time you learn the monastery's final secret." He approached the central pedestal with the crystal sphere. "This isn't just an archive. It's a beacon. If activated, it can reach every converted healer in the Dominion's control. Show them the truth. Break their conditioning. That's impossible. The neural programming can be overwritten by a stronger signal. By the original healing frequencies stored here." He looked at her intently. "But it needs a focus. Someone who's experienced both sides. A healer who became a weapon, and chose to heal again." Understanding dawned. "Me," Lyra whispered. "You've been preparing me for this. Teaching you. Helping you remember who you were." His eyes softened. "The choice is yours. It's always been yours." The hunters were almost upon them. Lyra could feel their violent intent pressing against her mind. But she could feel something else too, deep within their corrupted thoughts, an echo of who they'd once been. Healers. Like her. She stepped toward the pedestal, then hesitated. I don't know if I'm strong enough. You are. Kai's voice held absolute certainty. But you don't have to be strong alone. He held out his hand. After a moment, Lyra took it. Their fingers intertwined as the hunters breached the monastery's outer walls. Together then, she said. Above them, crystal panels shattered as the hunters descended. But in the archive chamber, Lyra and Kai stood ready, their weapons charged, their minds linked, preparing to defend not just their lives but the hope of healing for countless others. The real battle was about to begin. The choice. The first wave of hunters hit like a psychic storm. 3 of them crashed through the archive chamber's upper windows, their black armor absorbing the crystal light. Lyra recognized their leader instantly, Commander Vex, the one who had overseen her conversion 10 years ago. Weapon, 15, Vex's voice echoed both aloud and in her mind. The Dominion wishes to reclaim its property. Lyra stood her ground, the crystal weapon humming in her hands. I have a name. Names are for people. Vex's helmet retracted, revealing a face Lyra remembered from her nightmares, sharp features, metallic implants threading through pale skin, eyes that had once healed but now only hunted. You're a weapon. An effective one. Until this, malfunction. Kai stepped forward, his own weapon raised. She's under the monastery's protection. Vex's laugh was hollow. The Guardian speaks of protection. Let me show you what your sanctuary really offers. He raised his hand, and a hologram flickered to life between them. The image showed a Dominion capital ship hovering above a familiar world, Alteris Prime. Lyra's homeworld. The planet's healing centers glowed like beacons in the night. A simple choice, Vex said. Return to your purpose, Weapon, 15, and your world remains untouched. Resist, and we'll convert every healer on Alteris Prime. Children included. Lyra's blood ran cold. You're lying. Even the Dominion wouldn't. We already have teams in position. Vex's voice carried absolute certainty. Would you like to feel their minds? The fear of the young ones as we prepare them for processing? Before Lyra could react, Vex's mental attack slammed into her. Images flooded her consciousness, healing centers surrounded by Dominion forces, young telepaths huddled in corners, conversion chambers being prepared. The pain was overwhelming, but worse was the truth she sensed behind it. This was no illusion. Stop. Kai's voice cut through the assault. He had dropped his weapon and stepped between them. I have an alternative offer. Vex's mental pressure eased slightly. Speak. The monastery's archives. Complete access to all its healing knowledge. In exchange for letting her go. Kai, no. Lyra tried to push him aside, but he held firm. Think about it, Commander, Kai continued. All the ancient secrets of healing, yours to convert into weapons. Isn't that worth more than one escaped telepath? Vex studied him, metallic eyes gleaming. An interesting proposal. But incomplete. We'll need someone to help us interpret the archives. His gaze shifted to Lyra. Someone who understands both healing and warfare. Then take me instead, Kai said quietly. I've spent 15 years studying these texts. I know their secrets, their applications. Let her go, and I'll serve the Dominion willingly. Lyra's mind reeled. Kai, you can't. Everything you've fought to protect isn't worth your enslavement. He turned to her, his eyes soft despite his rigid posture. You've suffered enough. Vex smiled, the expression empty of warmth. Noble. But tactically flawed. He gestured, and the other hunters raised their weapons. We'll take both of you. And the archives. No. Lyra's voice was barely a whisper. She looked at Kai, saw the pain and determination in his face, and made her choice. No more. She dropped her weapon and stepped forward. Power began to build around her, not the violent force the Dominion had taught her to use, but something older. Deeper. The healing energy she'd relearned in the monastery's gardens. Lyra. Kai's warning was cut short as she placed her hand on his chest, directly over his heart. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "But you were right. The choice was always mine." Before anyone could react, she pushed him back with both physical and psychic force. He slammed into a crystal column, and she quickly activated its stasis field, trapping him in a protective bubble. "What are you doing?" Vex demanded, raising his weapon. Lyra turned to face them, her hands beginning to glow with the same light as the archive crystals. "Something you forgot I could do. Heal." She reached out with her mind, not to attack but to touch the twisted paths of their conversion. She found the wounds there, the scars where their healing abilities had been turned to violence. And she began to mend them. Vex screamed, more in rage than pain. "Kill her." The hunters fired, but their shots went wide. Their hands shook as Lyra's healing energy fought against their conditioning. Behind her, she could hear Kai shouting, beating against the stasis field, but she couldn't stop now. "Remember," she commanded, pushing deeper into their damaged psyches. "Remember who you were. Who you could be again." One of the hunters fell to his knees, his weapon clattering to the floor. Another pressed his hands to his head, ancient healing oaths fighting against Dominion programming. But Vex remained standing, his implants glowing as they fought her influence. "You'll die for this," he snarled, and fired. The blast caught Lyra in the shoulder, spinning her around. Pain exploded through her body, but she kept her focus. Blood trickled from her nose as she poured more power into the healing wave. "Then I die free," she gasped. Helping others find freedom too. She could feel her strength fading, the edges of her vision growing dark. But she could also feel something else, the archive's crystal sphere beginning to pulse in response to her power. The beacon was activating, using her healing energy as a template. Vex fired again, but his shot dissipated against a sudden shield of pure light. The archive was protecting her, amplifying her healing wave. Through their linked minds, she felt the exact moment his conditioning began to crack. What have you done?" he whispered, his metallic eyes wide with the first hints of returning awareness. Lyra smiled through her pain. "Reminded you of your first oath. Do no harm." She looked back at Kai, still trapped in the stasis field. His face was a mask of anguish and pride as the light grew brighter, filling the chamber with healing radiance. The choice had been made. Now they would all face its consequences. Liberation. The healing light filled every corner of the archive chamber, pulsing in waves that matched Lyra's heartbeat. She could feel the crystal sphere amplifying her power, sending it far beyond the monastery's walls. Through the hunters' linked minds, she sensed the signal reaching across space, touching every converted healer in the Dominion's control. But the effort was killing her. Blood ran freely from her nose now, and her legs trembled with the strain. The wound in her shoulder burned like frozen fire. Still, she held on, guiding the healing wave with everything she had left. "Lyra." Kai's voice barely reached her through the roaring in her ears. "Release the stasis field. Let me help." She wanted to. Every cell in her body screamed for his support, his strength. But she couldn't risk it. "They'll kill you," she gasped. The archives, too important. Commander Vex had fallen to his knees, his implants sparking as they fought against the healing frequency. The other hunters lay unconscious, their minds overwhelmed by the return of their original abilities. But through their fading link, Lyra felt the change spreading. On Dominion ships across the galaxy, converted healers were awakening to their true nature. The conditioning. Vex struggled to speak, his metallic eyes flickering between rage and recognition. "What have you, how?" "I remembered," Lyra told him, even as her vision began to dim. "Not just who I was, but why. Healing isn't just about fixing bodies. It's about choosing to help, even when it hurts. The crystal sphere pulsed brighter, drawing more of her energy. She could feel herself fading, becoming one with the healing wave. Perhaps this was always meant to be her path, not escape, but transformation. Suddenly, a new presence touched her mind. Then another. And another. Across space, awakened healers were reaching back, adding their strength to hers. She felt their support, their understanding, their choice to reclaim their original purpose. "You're not alone anymore," one whispered in her thoughts. "We remember too," said another. "Let us help," many voices echoed. Tears streaked down Lyra's face as their combined healing power flowed through her. The pain began to ease, replaced by a sense of connection she'd thought lost forever. This was what the Dominion had tried to destroy, not just their abilities, but their unity. Through the chamber's broken windows, she saw Dominion ships appearing in the sky. But they weren't attacking. On their decks, more healers were awakening, turning their ships toward home. "It's really happening," Vex whispered, wonder breaking through his fading conditioning. "We're free." The stasis field containing Kai suddenly shattered. The effort of maintaining it along with the healing wave had finally broken Lyra's control. She started to collapse, but strong arms caught her before she hit the ground. "I've got you," Kai murmured, cradling her against his chest. "I've got you." She felt his healing energy join with hers, not fighting for control but supporting, strengthening. The wound in her shoulder began to close as their combined power flowed through her. "The archives," she managed to say. "Are they safe?" he assured her. "And now their knowledge can spread again. Healing instead of hurting." Vex stood shakily, his implants now dark and lifeless. "The Dominion will come for this place. They won't stop until—" "Let them come." Kai's voice was steel. "The Guardians are already gathering. This time, we'll face them together." As if in response, new lights appeared in the sky, ships of different designs, all converging on the monastery. Lyra sensed familiar minds aboard them, the other guardians Kai had spoken of, coming to protect their ancient knowledge. And this time, she added softly, they'll face healers who choose to defend, not destroy. The crystal sphere's light finally began to fade, its purpose fulfilled. But the connection remained, thousands of healers across the galaxy, their minds linked not by force but by choice. Their shared trauma would take time to heal, but they would face it together. Lyra looked up at Kai, seeing in his eyes the same mix of exhaustion and hope she felt. "What happens now?" He smiled, touching her face gently. Now we heal. All of us." He helped her stand, supporting her weight. "And then we teach others to do the same." Around them, the archive chamber hummed with renewed energy. The crystal columns shimmered with ancient knowledge waiting to be rediscovered. Through the broken windows, dawn was breaking over the mountains, painting the sky in colors Lyra had almost forgotten existed. "I choose this," she said firmly. "Not because I have to. Because I want to." "I know," Kai replied. "I choose it too." Commander Vex approached them slowly, his movements uncertain but his eyes clear for the first time in years. Will you teach us how to heal again?" Lyra reached out and took his trembling hand. "Yes. That's what healers do." Outside, more ships were landing, guardians and awakened healers coming together to protect what had nearly been lost. Inside, surrounded by the knowledge of 1,000 worlds, Lyra finally felt the last chains of her captivity fall away. She was no longer a weapon. No longer a fugitive. She was simply herself, a healer who had found her way home. And as the sun rose over the monastery, its light caught the crystal sphere, sending rainbow patterns dancing across the chamber. Each color seemed to represent a different kind of healing, the mending of bodies, the restoration of minds, the recovery of lost knowledge, and most importantly, the healing of souls long trapped in darkness. Lyra squeezed Kai's hand, feeling his answering pressure. Together, they faced the dawn of a new day, ready to begin the work of true healing, not just for themselves, but for all those who would find their way to the monastery's door. The weapon had become a healer again. The prisoner had found freedom. And in the end, love had proven stronger than conditioning, hope more powerful than fear. It was time to heal.